I'm Dean Burke, trainer, Pint of Pints mostly, national hunting, an odd flat one, and retired amateur jockey. This is where I grew up. I was born and reared here. My interest in horses came from going next door to Reins. They always had 10, 12 or 14 horses breeding, and they raced an odd one. But that's where my interest or obsession came from. But I never actually rode a horse till I was 17. At the time, money was scarce or non-existent, so I got the loan of a cob from a horse riding place in the city, outside the city up near the airport. They just used them in the summertime and they just farm them out in the winter time. So I got the loan of him for one winter, and I learned to ride on him, and they never took him back. And he was actually young when I got him, but he turned out to be a good schoolmaster for more than me. I had him for a couple of seasons, but then they took him back, and Mary Mangan actually followed him, and she bought him, or her father did, I'd say, at the time, and they called him Sut, but he did everything. He trained all of Mary's, and she had him for a long time. He eventually got into out hunting, but he was in his 20s then. But he was a great schoolmaster, but that was the first horse I ever sat in. And I never really rode a racehorse till maybe once or twice before I got my first job, and it was the end of that year at Tom Bergen's. I started there in November '74. That was my first escapade in racing. And at the time it was very hard to get jobs, and nearly next to impossible to get a job in a racing yard. So through James Hannon I got to know Frederick Murphy. He was head lad in Paddy Mullins at the time, and he got me a job with Tom Bergen in Johnstown, County Kilkenny. So I gave 2 years there, just had to get up and come home once every 3 weeks, but I enjoyed it there, learned plenty. Tom had 2 years actually, but he had good horses at the time. When I was the ladies' master, won his bumper as a 4-year-old. Like, he went on to win a Galway Plate and total of 22 races afterwards. He had a horse called Haley's Machine. He had Dusky M. He had Brackay Boy, who was a horse with the two most crooked front legs you ever saw. But he won a heap of races. He won in the flat. He was turned in at the knees. He was down to a gentleman called Charlie Hayden. He was from Dungarvan, County Kilkenny. He was a lovely man, he was. But he was a really good horse now in those days. He had a lot of good horses now. But he taught me a lot, Tom did. Yeah, I rode out for different people around here too. I rode for Paddy Mangan when Jimmy was riding us. I was there actually when the year after Jones Finn won the Thyestes. I rode out all that winter for him. I rode out for Jim Ronan, Daly's. I used to ride for Billy Kingston, Klein. I used to ride some of his. I used to go down to the beach to ride him. I'd be home of a Sunday, go down there and ride one. I rode for Seamus O'Brien. He used to have Royal Hornpipe. Well, Aileen Sloan took over my job. She rode him a good bit. I rode against Alien, yeah. Yeah, we used to be looking at her from behind, yeah, to find the she won plenty of races in him. What else? I rode for a lot of different people around here. Local, like there's a big horse here, I plenty of them around here. I actually had my very first ride in Tara, Pint of Pint, but it was on for Ronald actually, a horse called Prince Kuma. I rode him in the confine in Tara. It was held only 1 year above where Pat Connell is now, Perry Stud. The races were held there 1 year, and I had my first ride there. And Nicky D actually won a confine race on a horse called Corrie Gold. I'll never forget that. And I had my second ride in on a mare of Tom Bergen's above in Kildorrery. Money Rock was her name. She belonged to a PJ Farrell from Stibely. I finished third in her. Johnny Callan actually won that with a mare called Midnight Canter. And then I went to Gordon the next day to ride her, and I was close. I know I was close to the front of the second or third, and I got unseated at the second last, and that was me done. I got jacked off then. And her next one was in Shillelagh. That time they used to cross the road in Shillelagh, and who was the road? That was it Paddy or Helen, that road, I think it was his name, yeah. Anyway, she fell. I was very disappointed that she fell. But anyway, the next day she ran in was in Bruff, and Nicky D rode her. And it was a Saturday, I'll never forget it. And of course, I hadn't the money to be Betty time, but she was some certainty. So Nicky won by a couple of fences with her. She was a good mare, she won a couple of 100 places after. That was the very first ride I had. So I had the ups and the downs all in one season. I'll go back to the start. Like I was only there a month when I got a fall on the road and broke my ankle. That was my first start, my first injury. Down through the years I had a lot of them. Got another fall on the road when I was 28, broke my wrist. I finished the riding career. I remember going to hospital in Cashel, and the surgeon came in to me and he said, I'm afraid, he said, you'll never again have the use of that hand. He said, if I had a bottle of glue, he said, I wouldn't put it together. And I rode a winner 3.5 months later. So I'd be a small bit stubborn in the jump. So, but after that time, my riding was never the same. So I was afraid of falling, so eventually it gave me up. I was there 2 years, I suppose, in full. And then I came back home. Did I come back home? Just for a short while. And then I went to Fancy O'Brien's. I gave 2 years in Fancy's then. That was a great experience. We used to, like, he had a lot of nice horses at the time. He had a horse called Rat Newer. He had Parker Tubber, Legislation. He had good horse, Delmo, was a good horse he ran in the National after. I gave 2 years there, and I got a few rides from Fancy as well. I had my first rides in the track from Fancy. And of course I was riding Pine and Pines as well. Fancy had a lot of horses. He used to keep some for Vincent at the time. And we used to go to Vincent's actually probably once a week working horses. At the time, Jackie Cullen was stable jockey there, and Jackie was one of the few guys that he could ride in the flat, over hurdles and over fences in the one day, and he often did it. But he was a very quiet man, Jackie, but God, he was able to ride there. And at the time, Piggott was riding there very often. I won't say I laid him up, but I often tacked up for him. And Tommy Murphy was there. Tommy Murphy was, he was riding still, wasn't he? That's it. Would he be in there? Fancy only had about 30 of his own, roughly, give or take. That's what he had, like, you know. He had a good setup. Like he had probably the first hour of the gallop I probably ever rode. He had it. He had a great grass gallop up the middle. But like, that was a good place to work, because we stayed, lived on down the bottom of the farm. Like, it was a good place. But I learned plenty there. I learned not to drink there too. Never did, but I learned not to. I rode a winner, Timony, a horse called Timony. He belonged to Mrs. Fanning, who was the daughter of Mrs. Valentine's. I won on him in Killarney, I'd say. But I'll never forget, I got beat on him in Gordon. A short hit in the winner's bumper. My God, I can still remember to this day. Fancy wasn't pleased. I actually got my instructions written down on a piece of brown paper going the same day. He wasn't there himself. But got beat a short hit by Alan Ross. My God, I'll never forget. Shouldn't have been beaten. But he actually went to America after that horse. He was a real good timber horse in America. Mrs. Fanning brought him out there. She'd actually trained him herself, I'd say, at the time. I rode a winner for Johnny Casey as well in Killarney, Rugged Lady. And I got beat in a maiden hurdle in the junction by Pat Colville. I shouldn't have been beat. And Johnny Casey was a real old type man. He used to call everybody Jimmy. Everybody Jimmy. It was exactly 2 years in Francis, and I got bad fall in the pint. I broke my collarbone, and I was sick for a fair while, I don't know. And that wasn't the reason I finished Francis. No, I don't know. I came home. My father was sick. And I came home. And I messed around here for a couple of years, but he died in the meantime, and I got into a few cattle. We always had a couple of cattle. We had a small bit of ground down to a granduncle of mine, so we bought calves. When he died, we bought calves, and I suppose they were about 6 months old. When I went to check them one day, they were gone. Well, they left me 4, but they took the rest of them. So then I had nothing. I had to go and get a job then. So for a couple of weeks later, then I went up to I went up to Moses with Bob Townend. Bob was living in Tal at the time, and he was stable jockey in Moses. So I went up there with Bob for 3 or 4 weeks riding out. So he offered me the job of head lad, and I took it at that time. So I gave 4 years doing that job. I rode a bit as well, but most didn't really want me riding, but I still rode away. Rode good for Pine that time, got a few winners. Rode a bit in the track. I rode in the track for Mouse. The best horse I rode for Mouse was Knockdonegal Alley. God, he was some spin. I won a novice chasing him below in Tralee. I beat Johnny O'Day. He's dead now too. I didn't say that, but anyway. I rode him then in the stole in the winner's chase. And I thought I was a jockey. I turned in upside Frank Berry, but Frank Berry won, I turned upside down. Buckhouse was there. Well, Buckhouse was only broken when I was there. What else had he? He had a horse called Leggett. God, he was the strangest animal, but God, he was a good horse though. He could smell a vet turning into the yard. He absolutely detested vets. So they eventually had a goat with him. But I rode him one day in the Curragh, and probably one of the few riders that ran out of room in the Curragh, but I did. I got beat a half length. That was the day of the National in a flat race, and who beat me was PJ Finn. He was too smart for me. Got boxed in, I had enough room. Anyway. I didn't ride that many for most, I rode up and down a few. Most won a lot of races. He was never a fan of bumpers. Even though he had a couple that won bumpers that time. Buckhouse, as I say, was broken. He was already starting out there, but I was there when he won in the Supreme Novices. And I was there when he ran the Arkle, didn't he? Yeah, I wasn't there then when he ran the Champion Chase. But I was there for the first 2 years he ran in Cheltenham. But he was a horse that never showed an awful lot at home. But I'll tell you a funny story about him though. He ran 3 times in bumpers. The first day he got one day he got beat in Navan, and he got beat, I'd say, in Roscommon. Second again. Then he went to Listowel, and he was 6-4 on. John Queally was riding him, and he turned into the straight in Listowel. He passed the second last fence, and John did that, and all of a sudden he just launched over the railing into the chase course, and I'm seeing John. But like he turned out, he was a funny fish trick, but he turned out a good horse. He was actually second in 3 bumpers, and then that happened as well. But like he turned out a fair horse after. But he was a funny fish. Now he was half a box walker. He used to walk up and down one half of the box. But like he never showed an awful lot at home, but he was a racehorse though. Bob Townend retired from riding then, and he took over as head lad then. But I was there long enough. I had a good time there now. I enjoyed it. I hand great with Mouse. Denny O'Connell, rode a good few for Denny. Rode a few winners in the track for Denny. I rode for Lady Errol. I won a point on Bowery Buck. Mick Reardon used to ride him, and Mick got a fall. He broke a collarbone or something. And I remember there was some do on at Moses, and she rang me to know they ride him the day after. I rang Moses, there was no mobile phones in those days. And I rode him the day after the Pint of Pints, and I was being cheeky. I said I'd ride him on condition I ride him in Cheltenham. So I won him in Kilmallock, I said it was. And the next one then was Cheltenham. And of course, he was funny bugger too, and we lined up, and it was a false start, and he planted himself the second time. I was last away. I finished the course now, but I didn't have a good spin. And who won it that year was Oliver Sherwood on Bench of the Cognac. It was 84, I think it was. But I never got into the rest. But when I came back to Ireland, then back from that, then I won a Hunter Chase him in Tralee, and I won the Tetra team on him, and I won in Kilbeggan. He won in Kilbeggan and the Tetra team in the 1 week. Like he won 3 in a row. And then the following, he was a big horse, he was 18 hands. But the following year then, his first run, I got him seated above in Fairyhouse, and that was me sacked. Again. I rode a mare called Shamrock Bridge for Dennis McCarthy and Jerry Nolan. He was one of my main owners for years. He was my first owner. He passed away a couple of years ago. He was very good to me. He owned her. She was a real good mare. And he had another one after that called Dunebridge, who was every bit as good. She won her Pint of Pint in Killarney, the inside track. And she won again in Kill. She won the track afterwards. I didn't ride her, no. Who was rider? After the Harry Bars or somebody that used to ride her. I rode out for Danny for a while, Danny Connell, but I got her fall on the road. That time made bits of my wrist. That was me done. But I had 2 horses up at Danny's at the time, training myself, so I came back home and I with my hand in a plaster, and I met my lieutenant then after that. I met her in England, around England for 6 weeks, over to Murray Smith. I met her there and she came back and we worked away together. I had the 2 horses. I did the riding out and she did the sailboat. She rode a bit too, but I rode out with one hand and they're on the plaster. No choice, had to do it, or die, the hunger. But those days, no money was scarce. Like interest rates were high, like there wasn't surplus. You had a couple of horses from people, like you'd get straw and feed to feed them, but we survived. Like a pound was a pound in those days, or a euro was worth nothing. Like you got something for the pound. But we didn't get it easy, but all you need is a bit of luck, no matter what you're at. One of them won 2 Pint of Pints. I rode her. My Condon rode her in Lismore. She won the confine in Lismore. Pine was her name. And because I was broke up at the time. And then I won a race there above Nattenroy, her next run. And she turned out to be the dam of Ballyhenry after that mare. And the other mare was a mare of my own. But I hadn't shared it with Dennis McCarthy in Portobello. But I was saying her. She was by the passing. Not very big, but I had to win on Lismore. I applied for a licence. I got a reference from Mouse to train, and that was being probably April time. And I remember going up to the Turf Club for the interview, and they gave it to me. In those days there was no stable inspection, so they gave me the licence, and I ran her about a month after in Kilbeggan, and she won there. The Take Beatty was her name. And she actually won in Kilbeggan 3 times for me. But I won her in Killarney as well, but Mickey Fling rode her for me as well. He won a chase on her in Kilbeggan. She wasn't too bad. She ran 49 times and she was in the money a lot of times. 26 of them, I think she was in the money. But she was tough. I didn't ride her much over fences now myself, because I was after going back after the thing. But I won a handicap holder in Kilbeggan. I'd say rather than the maiden too. I must have done, yeah. Later, because I was back riding Pine of Pints that time, yeah. Jerry Nolan then bought a mare for me, Try Cash. She was the first one, and She got injured actually afterward, but he always had 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 with me. He was very good on. I liked the punt. But the best horse he had was a horse called Thyestes. He won in Gordon, Maiden Hurdle. He won the Ackland Leopardstown. He never pointed, he wasn't a point horse. He was 4th in the Ackland in Cheltenham. Unfortunately, I ran him in the, not unfortunately, but I ran him in the Hennessy, thinking he stayed 3 miles and he didn't, and he dropped in 4 days later. Like, he was a big loss. Like, he was a 2 mile horse. In hindsight, I should have stuck to the 2 miles. Big mistake, big trainer error. But I'm not saying that's what killed him, but these things happen. Well, he was the best, by far. The other 2, it was, he was the best, but he didn't fulfill what he was capable of doing. I had Sir Frederick then. He won the Galway Plate. He won his point-to-point in Carrytool. I actually ran him as a 4-year-old in Tala. He was a big horse. Like, I had him out early at that time. But he ran his 2nd run in with Brown Limerick, and he ran a stinker. Obviously, it was too much for him as a 4-year-old. But he won first time out in Carrytool the following year. He won, normally hurdle races with him, but then he won the Galway Plate. Kevin Coleman rode him there. That was a great day. A funny story about that now as well. I aimed for it, but I never thought he'd be good enough to win it. But I remember I had planned to go working in the Curragh about fortnight before it, because he hadn't been anywhere. And I got up in the morning, loaded the lorry, bang, lorry wouldn't start. Had to abort. I ended up not going anywhere for the gallop. I went to Galway without a decent bit of work. And obviously learned there and then that he was better fresh. Just not a plan, just an accident came up, but like the boys had some day out of it. Like, they really, really enjoyed it. It was a day I won't forget. And then I bought my Murphy off of Eamon Fitzpatrick, Kilmanfoyle, and he was a 4-year-old, he had a bit done. I bought him off him for Paul Barber, and I brought him back here, and I was working my way, and Paul Barber and Paul Nicholas were coming over to Cheltenham previewing for me, and he said he'd see the horse then and pay for him then. So they came. Foolishly, I was doing too much with the horse, and when they came to see the horse, he didn't actually show himself very well. So they didn't like him. So I was left with him, if you like. So I got another man in to take a half share on him, and then George Zindel arrived looking for horses, and he bought him off us. And he turned out a decent horse. He won his point-to-point in Ballinoa, and he won his first run over hurdles. He won from Wexford. He won the Grade 3 novice in Limerick, and he won another in Clonmel. But eventually, like, he ran well over fence, so he was a decent horse. He won the Thyestes in, but I'm afraid that finished him. He'd been placed in it the year before, but he's such a hard race that he was never the same again. He lost his appetite for it, even though he won a couple of point-to-points after that, but he just wasn't the same horse. That was his Gold Cup. I came back here in '86. I got to 85 in 2004, 2003, 2002 I suppose. 2003 I had a lot of good for winners that year. Just eventually, like, the country got wealthy, and everybody wanted to have a share in the horse. There was loads of syndicates. Like, no matter what kind of horse you had that time, you could get someone into it. Whereas in the 80s, that was impossible, like, but the country wasn't awash with money. But like, things got great in the 90s. Like, from, I suppose, 1991 or 2 up to 2008, like, there's no bother to sell a horse or get people involved. Like, there was great cows going racing. I remember going to a point-to-point in Doneraile one day, and the Mayor's Maiden, there was 123 entered in it. It was divided 4 ways. They could actually have run a whole meeting with just mayors that day. Like, where are they now? Like, it was crazy. Like, that time, gee, you could have 12 to 15 races. Then divided, not divided once, it could be divided 3 or 4 ways. I suppose 2003, 2004, I had the biggest number. It was around 85 around the place that time. But I had him, it was hard work now. I worked the bones off of myself and everybody else. But we got results. But then gradually dwindled away, as happens. Owners die and run out of money, and then the bus came in 2008, but that was the main reason. Like, there was a lot of people disappeared that time, which there was more important things to be paid for. The horse won in this goal horse called Bramble Hill Duke, and Johnny Harrington came, was his agent, was Paul Barber's agent at the time, and Johnny came to saw the horse and he recommended him to Paul Barber, and that's how I got to know Paul Barber. And the start then he decided he'd have a couple of young horses here, because he didn't like running him at 4. Like, he'd buy, it was hard to buy the horse he wanted. He'd buy him at 3. I'd mess about him for a year, not run them. He just wouldn't have them running at 4. They wouldn't run till they were 5. And if they were good enough, then they went to Paul Nichols at the end of the 5-year-old Point to Pint season. And he'd have them for the autumn then. Like, we had a couple of nice horses went through our hand. Like, we had Big Fella Tanks, he bought him at 3, bought him from Tom Costello. He had Here Comes the Fruit, I'd say he came from Tom Costello. He had Gungadoo, he came from Costello. Valley Henry he bought from Bill Ronan here near us. Like, we had, I had been training him at the time, and he bought him in the yard here. He left him here for a couple of seasons. He won a Point to Pint. He won in Carrytool as well, and he won a bumper in Leopardstown, Philip Hinton rode him. Like, he was a decent horse. Big horse, but he was a decent horse. He won, I think he won 10 races in England. He was fourth in the Gold Cup. He just didn't quite get the trip. But he was a decent horse. But he was I suppose you call him a freak, if you like. He would buy Step Together out of a mare called Pineway. She would buy Gerald Lanside, so wouldn't buy what you call a fashionable cross. We always bought, every year we'd buy 5, 6, 8, 10 maybe at the sales. And you would know better than syndicate them or find a owner for them in those days. But bought another one in the country too, but mostly at the sales. But you could buy at the sales that time. It was what I call very much a level playing field at those days. Like, but times have changed. Current years I haven't been able to buy at the sales. Just gone too expensive, my opinion. But some people make it pay, but not me. There was a time it was easier to train a horse for a Point to Pint because you didn't have to train him as hard. Like, I'd be old fashioned, you'd give a horse time. You give him a couple of runs, educate him and bring him along nicely, but that day is over. You have to win now in 2 runs or your horse isn't worth anything. Like, so they're basically handicappers when they go Point to Pint, you know. And like, they have to jump, they have to gallop, and they have to stay. But whereas if you run a horse in the track now, run him in a hurdle race, 2 miles, less weight and quicker recovery, you have a horse after it. That's my personal opinion. But as for selling him, then you see you're scuppered. Same horse, only they're trained so much harder. Like, the hardest races to win are the 4-year-olds, because they are handicappers. They can jump for fun, every one of them. Like, and if you don't train your horse that way, you're left behind. But the chances of getting them to the track, you know, you're lessening your chances really, because they're not, in my opinion, they're not mature enough to take that kind of work, a lot of them. So there's farming inside, but the big thing about it is to break them at 2, like the fancy thing. Like, it's very hard to buy a horse in summer, 3-year-old, and have him winning his Point to Pint the following March. It's not easy done. Like, it's a lot of a rush job, but whereas they're broken at 2, like, they've so much done and they're getting more time. They're getting a chance in between. As I say, I'd be old fashioned and was always taught to give a horse time. Well, you know, because you're going to get sore shins, you're going to get this, that and the other with them. It's very hard to avoid that with young horses. But as I say, if you break them at 2 and having them up, they can take it better. Well, the nearer you get to the saddle with the middle of the road horse, the cheaper they are, basically. But like, that market is difficult at the moment. Like, you either have the top performing horse and the top pedigree horse to get the money. But it's the middle of the road horse that's going to, well, he's going to suffer in my opinion, because you need somebody to race them. And syndicates, in my opinion, are getting scarcer. And it's hard to win. It was never easy. Like, it was never an easy game. But probably the best will always shine through. But it's just gone, how do I put it, harder. It's bigger yards or stronger numbers. Like if you've only a couple of horses, it's hard. Training facilities have got so much better. Like they're trained a lot harder now. But the horses are probably still the same. Like there was plenty of good horses in those days too. Like the plenty of horses went on to win Gold Cups and different things in those days as well. But they're trained harder nowadays. Everyone has an all-weather gallop now. In those days the all-weather gallop was the side of the road, if you were lucky. Or in a gate if the gate wasn't locked. That's what we did in the old days, and keep looking behind it if there wasn't a shotgun pointing at you. But that day is over. Like, you have to have your own facilities now, or you just don't do it. You go back in the day, and like you go to the sales, like the big money horses were bought to go for bumpers and that, but now they're bought to go point to pointing, and in my opinion, they're trained hard and they don't last long enough to win a Gold Cup. That is my honest opinion. I know you get the odd one that'll come through, but like they have a lot done. There's a lot of galloping done by the time they get to the end of their novice hurdle career, their novice chasing career. Grade 1 racing or Grade 2 racing is hard on horses. Like you'll see it there time again. Like if one gets a very, very hard race in one of those top ones, it might not be the same again after it. Like, I know the National is a tough race, like, but how many of them can back it up? Even the Gold Cup, like you look at it, a lot of horses, that was their day, and like it's hard to back it up. But like there are the exceptions, like the really good horses, but like a lot of them are minded, they were only run 3 or 4 times in the season as well. They've dropped because of the number of runners taking part, number one. The people or the farmer with the 1 or 2 horses, like he's not competing anymore because of the regulations basically, but they have to be in place. Like it's not worth getting insurance just to run one horse and pound to pound, it's gone too expensive. Like why would you do it? Like it's cheaper to go playing rugby or something else for their sons or daughters. When you had the person with the local guy with the 1 or 2 horses, like well he brought his family or she brought their family and they brought their friends or the neighbours all went to see the horse run. But they're not there anymore. That's why the atmosphere is gone. I remember Lismore, Pint to Pint for instance, God you wouldn't storm it one time. And like there'd be thousands in the betting ring. Well, you could be talking about 100,000 circulating in the ring. Like that day is gone. Like the number of bookies aren't there anymore, but like I suppose your television has taken over. Like the bad day punter won't go racing anymore. He'll stay home and watching television, that's one thing. But the fact that the local man isn't competing, like the local people aren't going, the same interest is not there. It's a pity, really, but that's the way it's gone. I remember a time now, you'd go to the local of a Sunday night and the place would be packed with owners or trainers or riders to see the video. I was at a Drummerhan Pint to Pint this autumn, and I had a problem with the lorry on the same day and I missed most of the races. And I went to the local to see the races. There was 2 of us there watching the video. Like, it didn't pay the publican to get the video to have it for the night. Only 2 of us watched it. Like, that's one thing that has died. I know there's other nights now when the real local Pint to Pint is on, they would be there, but it's still not the same. But like the Pint to Pints have gone so commercial. Like there's a big money involved now. But like, you got to say Tullus or Clonmel any now. Like you take the OAPs out of it. When you enlist you must soldier. Advice I've been given is don't look back. Look forward to the next day. Don't dwell in the past. What has happened has happened. Me, personally, I've probably been very hard on riders from time to time, but fine if something goes wrong and they admit it, fine, but I don't like someone bluffing their way out of it, bullshitting me. I don't do that. I've been known to tear strides off of jockeys, but I say it to their face, I wouldn't say it behind their back. Like, they know how they stand with me. But I've made it a lot over the years, the same fighting that in me. Tom Lombard rode a lot from here. Owen Gallagher rode a lot of good few winners for me. Richie Harding rode a lot of winners for me. Derek O'Connor rode an awful lot of winners for me. Cormac Sweeney rode a lot of winners for me. He's now become, he was the hunted, now he's the hunter. And he suits the job well. I used to back horses a lot when I was younger. Myself and two other guys, Bill Ronan and Tim Hogan. Tim Hogan was the older guy. Bill was the farm expert, and we just invested on his shillings, so we used to be doing accumulators. This would be nearly every day, and sometimes we'd win if you could. But that was my first interest in horses. When I couldn't go into a betting shop, that was my first interest in horses. If that time I'd get someone to do it for me, if I bet my own and shinny up and down, I couldn't pass a betting shop. I was terrible. And then when I started working with horses, I learned not to gamble, because I thought it was simple, but it wasn't simple. But I did bet. Now the last real big bet I had was in Gordon, the Tynigan one, 33-1. That was the best deal I ever had, betting. And the last bet I had in the point, I had a lot of winners in point, but the last time I backed a horse was in the old Skibbereen. I ran a horse in Lismore, and he finished fourth. He was down to a good man from Dungarvan, and he finished fourth. Tom Lombard was riding for me at the time. Like, he ran well in Lismore, and he said, "This will win next Sunday if we run him again." I said, "Jesus, Skibbereen won't suit him, Tom, it's too tight." No, he said he'll win. So we head for Skibbereen down to the hurling field, that's what it was called at the time, and to the bit of a chicane of a track down the back. Tom missed the break. He was last away. That was the first time. When I backed him, I had £30 on him, and £30 to me now was a lot of money. I'm talking about, geez, it could be 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. That was a lot of money for me. And he got into the race, and going down the back the last time with, I suppose, 3 to jump. He's only 1 in front of him, and he had him beat. And I declared to God, when they went around the chicane, there was a bale of straw, and the horse did that. Straight into the bale of straw and turned upside down. And that was the end of that. I never again backed a horse in a point. And that horse hitting the bale of straw damaged his windpipe, and he was never any good after either. And I'd never again backed a horse in a point. Never. Shows I'm sitting down here. I never had one shilling on a horse in a point after that, and I had a lot of winners, but I never backed one of them. That finished me in punting. I rode in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and I had one ride in 2001 for Mike Condon. Actually, I rode him in Dawstown, the old Dawstown track. I finished fourth in old Macadam. And then Janet died in, and I didn't want to, I had no business riding anymore. I had 2 children to look after, and I had plenty of horses to keep me busy. And then my knees gave me trouble. It never crossed my mind to want to ride or anything, but I got quite on horses, and I ended up owning a good few myself. And I said, I got an old stomach problem, and I lost a lot of weight. And I said, you know what, I'd like to ride a bumper again. So I rang Marianne Waters one day, and I told her not to laugh before I started. And I asked her what was the upper age limit for an amateur licence, and of course she started laughing. I said, I told you not to laugh. But she said that there wasn't any. So she gave me the procedure and sent out the forms, and I had to go to race for a day to be assessed by Niall Byrne and Paddy Flood, who Paddy Flood used to ride for me one time, but they had to see, A, could I tack up, and B, could I get up, and see could I ride a canter. So I passed that, and I got the licence. I had a bit of crack on the day, of course. They all thought it was funny. There was people on the course with me that I was old enough to be their grandfather, but I still think I rode a winner before a lot of them. So I got reasonably fit then. I went to the sauna a good bit because I had to keep the weight in check, but I did a lot of cycling, and I just rode a few that I had half shares in, but I lost 5 of them. Would you believe that autumn, that first year that I rode? 5 of them, in one thing or another, I lost them. One broke a leg in Clonmel, another one broke a back in Listowel over hurdles. I was second to him in Ballinrobe actually. Lost one at home, got some kind of gut poisoning. She was 5th in a bumper and ace first time out, and I was just unlucky with that. And then Tuckter's Glory was there, and he ran in a hurdle race and ace, and he got the winning bumpers a 4-year-old, and he made a mistake at the last, and he ended up finishing 3rd. So I said there was a winner's bumper coming up. I said, yeah, I'd chance him in that. So I ran it. There were only 5 ran on the day, but it still wasn't a bad race. So it just worked out, and it was a great feeling to pass the line in front of him. I thought the last furlong would never end, but I stayed on anyway, which is the important there. I ran him again in Fairy House, wasn't it? It was 3rd in Fairy House after that. It wasn't a good bumper to him. But anyway, I rode him that, and I kind of guessed that day I wouldn't be riding again. But I had not enjoyed it, and I kind of let myself go during the summer. Then I lost fitness and everything, and I had nothing. Wouldn't be worth the effort trying to keep fit, because when you're turning nearly 67, it's harder to keep fit. But anyway, I got what I wanted, and there was no point in pushing my luck. So that was it. And you agree with me? Yeah. There's lots of things I don't agree with, lots of things I do agree with. But when I do retire from training, I will write a book. It will be nice reading, but it won't be pleasant. My own opinion about the whip is it's an aid, can't be done without, in my opinion, because you need it for correction purposes. You're going to end up with jockeys getting injured. But I do feel very strongly about a lot of the riders, young riders, they're not taught how to use it properly. With the Pint of Pints, I think they should start day 1 of the season and lay down the law, and they will learn from there. The hardest punishment is pay to learn. If you pay to learn something, you won't forget it. Now, they're fairly good in it. Some people go overboard with the punishments, but if they start day 1, which the worst of all is a day or 2 suspension, but I do feel that before the Pint of Pints start at all, that the jockeys aren't being versed properly enough. They know the rules, but they should learn to abide by them from day 1. Right? They can all count, they're all adults, they're only riding animals, and no one likes to see them being abused. Like, you want to get the best out of them, but you don't like to see them abused. Like, we're all in this game because we love horses, basically, and I don't agree with it. Horses being punished unnecessarily, and it's right that jockeys are punished accordingly. That costs, if it keeps the way going the way it is with the television and scrutiny, they won't be allowed to use a whip eventually if they don't learn how to use it properly. What I've seen happens with riders, currently riders, is they're riding too short and they're not able to dig their heels into horse and get behind them. They're relying the stick too much. It's the first thing they go for is the stick, and I do not agree with that. Like, you plenty jockeys, but we're a bit short than horsemen at the end of the day. I don't like seeing them being battered. And if you close your eyes and listen, it doesn't sound good. Staff, like any of our trainers, are only as good as the people they've working for them. And like, you just rely on the staff to be good with the horse and everything. But I often say to my lads, like, when things will be going bad, I said, I'm only as good as the people around me. And sometimes I look around and I wonder, but I'm not blaming any friend, but like that's the way it is. Like, you're only as good as the staff you have. It's not a one-man show. That's the most important thing, you need good staff. Sure, they were very young when their mother died. Amy was 9 and Jonathan was 5, but so they were always around with me. They were always around Thyestes. Jonathan, when he was 10 stone weight. And I remember Paul Barber telling him one day, well, you'll never make a jockey because you're too pudgy. And from that day on, he seemed to be obsessed about minding his weight, and he would really watch it. And to this day, he's only about 10.5. But he rode pony races, but not a lot of them because he was too heavy. Like, he was too heavy, he rode a few. He rode a few winners, he rode for Fancy Galway and a few like that. He got a bad fall then in Ballybunion. His last ride, he's doing a bit of commentating at the pony race as well. But he got a fall in Ballybunion and he hurt his neck. He gave 4 days in Trinity Hospital, and then he was moved from there to the Mater in Dublin, and he gave another while there. But he eventually came alright. That was the first back injury he had. But he didn't ride any more pony races after that. That was the end of him. He was gone too old anyway. But by the time he got over that injury, the year was over anyway. He got his licence then, yeah, and he rode few pints only. I suppose he had his first ride in Kildare and he got around. And then he went to Knockanard. I wasn't there the same day. I was gone to Askeaton, and he rode a horse called Major Finnegan, who had been a good horse in the track, but he got injured and he rode him. He had ridden him in Kildare too, and he was in front of the last and he unseated him. He would have won that day, but then he went to, didn't ride much after that, but he went to Ballyknoe one day or two, running in Ballyknoe for him. Sir Frederick was running in the lightweight, and a horse called Crown and Glory was running in it was the confined. So he won on him, and then he rode Sir Frederick in the lightweight and he won on him. So he had 2 winners that day and he was away. But he didn't ride many more pints after. I'd say he rode, could be that season, he won the Land Rover bumper in Punchestown for William Mullins. I'd say he turned professional after that. He's living the dream I had for myself, but it never materialised. But I do enjoy watching him. I don't get to see them all, but the biggest, I won't say it's a problem, but sometimes when you get a fall, like those couple of minutes until you know he's alright, or can be difficult. Like in Aintree this year when he got the fall at the chair. I'm very grateful to Jennifer Pugh because she rang me straight away to tell me that what the extent of the injury was. They had the screens around him, we just couldn't see nothing or know anything, but she rang me straight away and told me that he was alright, just an injury to his arm, but other than that he was fine. And I'll never forget her for that. Very, very thankful to her. I suppose the day Jonathan rode the 2 winners too was a good day in the pint and Ballyknoe, but probably the best day I remember his riding was the day he won in Gordon with Sizing Europe. That he won that race in Gordon for the 3rd time. Like, that was a real feather in his cap at that stage because he was only 18. The day my Murphy won was a good day. It was a lot of good, but I enjoyed the day in Limerick as well. Like, there's a lot of days there. There's a lot of more days that not so enjoyable, but you have to forget about them. That happens. But enjoy the good days when you get them. Amy then was always interested too. She was, funny enough, she wanted to ride pony races, and she was riding him out and all, but he was a bit keen. God, he ran away with her going to the start, and of course there was waterworks, and she got off, and thanks be to God she didn't ride him. She was withdrawn at the start, and that was her only escapade to race riding. It was the last meeting that was held in Ballincollig for obvious reasons that I won't go into. And that was it, finished Amy was riding. And but she was a good rider when she was young, but she got a fall off a pony before that again, years before that, and it just didn't help her confidence. But then she went and did national stud course in Newmarket, and she got a job in Valiant as studs, I don't know what the name of the other part, 2 studs. And in the meantime she applied for something here to do with the ITB, I think it was, and she got that placement in, and she went to she was in HRI, and she was in 3 different places, and then she basically got a job in Weatherby's. She was looking after, she was there for a good while, and then she got itchy feet again and she moved to Australia, as a lot of young people want to travel, so she's been out there with 3 years or so. And she works for Matthew Smith out there, he's racing, he does a lot of horses, she does a lot of racing, and she seems to be happy there. I'm in my 50th year now working at horses, and I don't know, I'd like to do things that I haven't had time to do. I like to do a bit of cycling, different things. I'd like to have a little bit of freedom. I'd be only a hobby cyclist now. It's a stress relief for me. I'd rather go to Greenways, I don't like the roads are dangerous. There's 5 major greenways in Ireland, I'd like to cycle the 5 of them. That's what I'd like to do now. I suppose I'll never get away from horses. I'd like to do other things, but I have a lot of time, I suppose, and money, you could say, invested in the place, in gallops and everything. Probably still keep them morting. I'll always have a couple of horses. How many, I don't know, because you need to get lucky, get a good one, but we'll always have a few. But I'd like to do other things as well.